We take refugees that are fleeing war. We take refugees that are fleeing persecution, religious or otherwise, ethnic persecution. But could we soon be accepting climate change refugees? If the jurisprudence just established in New Zealand holds and spreads, yes, that could be happening. Sun News contributor Simon Kent joins us from London. And Simon, I wanted to talk to you about this because you're in London right now, but you're from Australia. You've traveled through the South Pacific region. You know the area well. You know, is this legitimate climate change refugees? They say their islands could sink.
Well, don't just take my word for it. The New Scientist magazine debunked this theory 3 years ago. But yes, I have been through the Cook Islands, Fiji, Tahiti, down into Tonga. Beautiful part of the world. It's achingly beautiful. These little islands are like specks of gold dust and diamonds all the way through the South Pacific. And all of these countries like little Tuvalu are sitting on coral outcrops, and they're surrounded by coral reefs, and they're actually not getting smaller. They're not drowning. They're not going under. According to the New Scientist magazine, they're actually growing, and there is no threat at all. There is no threat to these islands, to these communities, and the New Scientist debunked this 3 or 4 years ago.
And that story was picked up by BBC, and I want to read a quote from it. Paul Kench, Auckland University Associate Professor, said, "Prognosis for these nations is incorrect. We have now got the evidence to suggest that the physical foundation of these countries will still be there in 100 years, so they perhaps do not need to flee their country." Yet in New Zealand, they said a couple from Tuvalu could come in and join and stay as refugees because of climate change. I'm really worried about this because increasingly judges look not just at jurisprudence in their own country, but they say, oh, did you see what so-and-so said in some half-baked decision in another country?
You're absolutely correct. And unfortunately, this decision that was made in New Zealand, there were other factors involved here, but this is the part that leapt out at everyone, that somehow these people were climate change refugees. But they ended up in New Zealand. They had family there. Their previous visa ran out in 2007. They reapplied in 2009 to stay again. And then perhaps their legal counsel said, I know, I've got a great idea. Let's say you can't go back because you'll be victims of climate change. You're going to go back and you'll die, or worse. I mean, come on, guys, you've got to get a better legal argument than that. I mean, and Tuvalu is this little speck of a single island, little part of an island chain. It used to be the old Gilbert and Ellice Islands and goes across to the Cook Islands. Less than 10,000 people. And it's a tiny little island. I can see perhaps their argument that they wanted to be economic refugees. They want to move to New Zealand. And that's a valid argument, but to pin it, which can be decided by a court, but not on the basis of spurious basis of climate change. Give me a break.
Like an awful lot of bogus refugees, as I like to call them, they're really economic migrants, is your view. They wanted a better life than they had in Tuvalu, and they said, New Zealand's the place for me. Let's go there. I have no problem with economic refugees, but there's a way to do it and not do it. And this seems like an abuse of the system.
It does. And New Zealand is like Canada, like Australia, like America, like where I am in Britain. They have a very orderly migration program. They have a very orderly way and a set way of deciding who will come and who won't, and on a needs basis. And they take in a fair proportion of people too who are under threat. But this is not the way to go about it, Brian. And you hit the nail on the head where you said different jurisdictions around the world will sometimes cherry pick decisions and judgments in other jurisdictions and say, well, there's a precedent that's been set, and in the law, precedence is everything. And now, for the first time in the world, we have a family that has been given refuge in another country based on a spurious judgment of that somehow it's climate change is the reason. I don't know where this goes next. Should you be getting ready in Ottawa or Toronto or Vancouver or even here in London for climate change refugees? I really hope not, because the science, as many,
I can see as the temperature goes up in Mexico, which it won't, people saying, I need to come to Ottawa where it's colder, and this will be the way they do it. Scary stuff, Simon, but thanks for laughing our way through it with us.